The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark between stars. Inside its metal halls, beings from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. The air felt heavy with worry and fear. Red warning lights flashed on every. Wall Ambassador Tae-ho stood before the Great Council chamber. His blue skin was pale with stress. His hands shook as he held the data pad containing his world's death sentence. Around him sat representatives from hundreds of different species. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed oxygen like him, others wore special suits. But they all shared the same expression of helplessness. "Council members," Tae-ho began, his voice breaking slightly. "My homeworld Rilla 9 will die in 72 hours. Murmurs filled the chamber. Many council members had heard rumors, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Tae-ho activated the holographic display above his head. A three-dimensional image of his star system appeared, showing a massive star turning red and growing larger. "Our sun is dying faster than our scientists predicted. It will explode and destroy everything within 10 light years. That includes Rila 9 and our 3 colony worlds. 15 billion people will die unless we evacuate them immediately." The hologram showed escape routes from the doomed system. Most paths were blocked by asteroid fields or enemy territory. Only one route remained clear, the Kepler corridor. It was the fastest and safest path to refugee camps in the outer systems. "The problem," Tae-ho continued, "is that Earth's Fleet Battle Group 7 has claimed exclusive rights to the Kepler corridor for the next 72 hours. They say it's for routine patrol operations." A wave of uncomfortable silence swept through the chamber. Everyone knew what this meant. The one rule that kept peace in the galaxy was simple. Never interfere with Earth's fleet operations. Never challenge them. Never question their authority in space. Council Chairman Wu Jin rose from his seat at the center of the chamber. He was old, even by his species' long-lived standards. His silver hair reflected the chamber's lights as he spoke with a voice that carried the weight of centuries. "Ambassador Tae-ho, surely you understand the situation. The Jakarta incident, 50 years ago, should serve as a reminder to us all." Tae-ho's face hardened. 15 billion lives, Chairman. My children are on that world. My grandchildren who have never seen another star. And how many children died when the hegemony tried to force passage past Earth Convoy Delta 7? Wu Jin replied sadly. 3 entire star systems, gone. No distress calls, no survivors, just empty space where millions of beings once lived and loved and dreamed. Other council members shifted nervously in their seats. The Jakarta incident was not something they liked to remember. The Terran hegemony had been one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They commanded 1,000 ships and controlled 50 systems. When they encountered a small Earth convoy carrying what appeared to be simple supplies, they demanded right-of-way. The Earth ships refused. The hegemony attacked with everything they had. Plasma cannons that could melt planets. Nuclear missiles that burned like small suns. Gravity weapons that could crush a moon into a marble. For 6 hours, the battle raged across space. Then suddenly, all communication from the hegemony fleet stopped. When scout ships arrived a week later, they found nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no trace that one of the galaxy's greatest military powers had ever existed. The Earth convoy continued on its route as if nothing had happened. That was different, Tae-ho argued, though his voice lacked conviction. The hegemony attacked first. They were aggressors. We only ask for passage to save innocent lives. The result will be the same, said Representative Minna from the Centauri Collective. Her tentacles writhed with anxiety as she spoke. Earth's ships don't make exceptions. They don't negotiate. They don't explain themselves. They simply eliminate anything that stands in their way. Tae-ho looked around the chamber at faces filled with sympathy and fear. These beings wanted to help him, but they were too terrified to act. He understood their fear, But understanding didn't save his world. So, we do nothing, he asked. We let 15 billion people die because we're afraid of humans. We are not afraid of humans, Wu Jin said carefully. We are afraid of what travels with their ships, what powers their weapons, what makes their hulls repair themselves after battle, what allows a single Earth vessel to defeat fleets 10 times its size. Nobody spoke about it openly, but everyone had heard the stories. Earth ships that grew stronger during battle, weapons that seemed to learn from each fight, shields that became harder to penetrate with every attack. And sometimes, crew members reported hearing voices from destroyed enemy ships speaking through their communication systems. There must be another way, Taeho pleaded. Some other route we haven't considered. The holographic display showed their options again. Every path except the Kepler corridor would take too long. By the time refugee ships reached safety through alternative routes, there would be nothing left to save. Contact Admiral Bo-Ra Kim directly, suggested Council Member Hyung-soo from the Outer Rim territories. Perhaps if you explain the situation personally, she might allow your ships to pass. Taeho had already tried. Admiral Kim's response had been brief and cold. The Kepler corridor is closed to all non-Earth traffic for 72 hours. Any vessel attempting passage will be turned back or destroyed. This is your only warning. She won't listen to reason, Taeho said. None of them ever do. As the council session continued, Captain Hyunwoo waded aboard his flagship in the Rillan emergency fleet. He had served in the Rillan military for 30 years. He had fought pirates and raiders and hostile aliens. But he had never faced Earth's fleet. His communication officer approached with a worried expression. Captain, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from the surface. The stellar collapse is accelerating. We have maybe 60 hours now, not 72. Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display showing his 50 ships. They were good ships with brave crews. But 50 ships against Earth's fleet seemed like insects challenging a storm. Sir, his first officer Yun-soo said quietly, the Council will never approve action against Earth's fleet. Too many species remember what happened to the hegemony. Then we act without approval, Hyunwoo replied. I won't let my world die because the galaxy is too afraid to challenge Earth's authority. He opened a channel to his fleet commanders. All ships, prepare for immediate departure to the Kepler corridor. We're going to save our world, even if it costs us everything. As the Rillan fleet began moving toward the corridor, their long-range sensors detected the Earth ships waiting for them. 7 vessels that looked small compared to Hyunwoo's fleet, but everyone knew size meant nothing when dealing with Earth technology. Admiral Bo-Ra Kim's voice crackled across space on an open frequency. Rillan vessels, you are approaching a restricted zone. Turn back immediately or face the consequences. Captain Hyunwoo took a deep breath and replied, Admiral, we're evacuating our dying world. We're not your enemies. We just need safe passage to save innocent lives. The Kepler corridor is closed, Bo-Ra responded. Her voice was cold and final. This is your only warning. Turn back now. The Rillan ships continued forward. Behind them, their homeworld's sun grew brighter and more unstable with each passing hour. Ahead of them waited Earth's fleet and the mysterious power that made them untouchable. In the depths of space, something ancient and patient sensed the approaching conflict. Something that had been waiting for this moment. Something that fed on the choices desperate people made when they had no other options. The contract would be honored, the price would be paid, and the galaxy would remember once again why no one interfered with Earth's fleet. 57 years earlier, Earth was a different place. Humanity had just learned to travel between stars, but they were still weak compared to the great powers of the galaxy. Their ships were slow and their weapons were basic. Most alien species saw them as harmless newcomers who would never amount to much. Deep Space Monitoring Station, Prometheus floated at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was humanity's furthest outpost, a collection of metal modules connected by tubes and cables. The station's job was simple: watch for alien ships and listen for signals from other worlds. Communications officer Jin A had worked at Prometheus for 3 years. Every day was the same routine: check the radio telescopes, monitor subspace frequencies, file reports that nobody read. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. On the day that changed everything, Jin A was drinking her morning coffee when the computer started making noise. Warning alarms buzzed through the station, her screens filled with data that made no sense. "What's happening?" asked her supervisor, rushing into the communications bay. "I'm getting a signal from the void," Jin A replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "But that's impossible. There's nothing out there. The void is empty space between galaxies." The void was exactly what its name suggested: a vast region of nothingness that separated their galaxy from the next. No stars, no planets, no life, just cold darkness stretching for millions of light years. Scientists said nothing could survive in such emptiness. But something was sending a signal from that impossible place. The transmission was unlike anything in Earth's databases. It wasn't radio waves or laser pulses or any form of communication they understood. Instead, it seemed to be pure mathematics, equations and formulas that somehow carried meaning beyond numbers. "Get Dr. Minseo Park on the line," Jin A's supervisor ordered. "If anyone can figure this out, it's her." Dr. Minseo Park arrived at Prometheus 3 days later. She was Earth's leading expert on alien communication and xenobiology. Her job was studying life forms that evolved on other worlds. She had spent years trying to understand how alien minds worked and how they might try to talk to humans. When she saw the mathematical transmission, her face went pale. "This isn't just a message," she told the station crew. "It's a contract, a legal document written in universal mathematical principles." The mathematics were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They described concepts that human language couldn't express, ideas about space and time and consciousness that went beyond Earth's science. But underneath the beauty, Minseo sensed something predatory. "The patterns remind me of a spider's web," she explained to Admiral Dae-hyun during a video conference. "Everything is designed to catch something and hold it tight." Admiral Dae-hyun was the head of Earth's small space fleet. He was a practical man who cared more about results than theories. When he looked at the alien mathematics, he saw opportunity instead of danger. "What does the contract offer?" he asked. Ginny had been working for weeks to translate the mathematical language. Her answer made everyone in the room hold their breath. Protection, advanced technology, the power to defend ourselves against any threat in the galaxy. In exchange, we agree to serve as enforcement agents for something called the Custodian. "Enforcement of what?" Minseo asked, though she already feared the answer. "Cosmic laws, rules that keep the universe stable. The contract says we would be responsible for punishing anyone who breaks these laws." Admiral Dae-hyun leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of punishment?" The mathematics were vague about details, but the meaning was clear. Species that violated cosmic laws would face corrective measures. The contract promised that Earth would receive the tools needed to carry out these corrections. "There's a specific clause," Ginny continued. "Any civilization that directly interferes with our fleet operations will automatically trigger the punishment protocol." Dr. Minseo felt ice forming in her stomach. "It's using us. This custodian thing wants humanity to be its attack dogs. We enforce its rules. And in return, we get the power to dominate the galaxy. Or we get the power to protect ourselves," Admiral Dae-hyun countered. "Look at our situation, Doctor. We have 12 ships and basic weapons. The Galactic Council barely acknowledges we exist. If hostile aliens decided to destroy Earth tomorrow, we couldn't stop them." That was true. Humanity was defenseless compared to established galactic powers. The Terran hegemony alone had more ships than Earth could build in a century. If someone, wanted to wipe out humanity, there would be nothing to stop them. But at what cost? Mincio argued. This contract would make us enforcers for an entity we don't understand. We'd be responsible for punishing other species, possibly destroying entire civilizations. Only if they threaten us first, the Admiral replied. The contract is clear about that. We only act against civilizations that interfere with our operations. The debate continued for weeks. Earth's government was divided. Some leaders saw the contract as humanity's chance to become a major galactic power. Others worried about the moral implications of serving an unknown alien entity. While politicians argued, Jin-A continued studying the mathematical transmission. She discovered that the custodian wasn't just offering power, it was offering evolution. The technology would change human ships and weapons, making them grow stronger with each battle. It's not just equipment, she explained to a closed session of Earth's leaders. The contract would fundamentally alter our relationship with technology. Our ships would become semi-living things that learn and adapt. Captain So Young of the Earthship Indomitable was attending the session as a military advisor. She had fought pirates and raiders in humanity's early expansion period. Her experience with alien technology made her valuable to the decision-making process. What about the crew? She asked. How would these changes affect the people serving? On our ships? Jin-A's translation had revealed disturbing details about that. The contract mentioned something called consciousness integration. Our ships would be powered partly by the mental energy of their crews, and possibly by the mental energy of defeated enemies. Dr. Min Seo stood up abruptly. Absolutely not. We cannot sign a contract that feeds on consciousness. That's not technology, that's vampirism. But Admiral Dae Hyun had already made his decision. The benefits outweigh the risks. Humanity needs this protection if we're going to survive in a hostile galaxy. The final vote was close. 51% in favor of accepting the contract. Earth's representatives gathered at Prometheus Station for the signing ceremony. The mathematical formulas were transmitted back to the void using humanity's most powerful transmitters. The response was immediate. Every human ship in space began to change. Metal hulls shifted and flowed like living tissue. New weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments. Computer systems upgraded themselves with technology that shouldn't have been possible. Captain So Young watched her ship transform around her. The Indomitable had been a simple patrol vessel. Now it was something else entirely. The walls felt warm to the touch. The lights pulsed like a heartbeat. And deep in the engineering section, something new had appeared. A chamber filled with strange machinery that hummed with alien power. Captain, her engineer reported over the intercom, we're detecting massive increases in our defensive capabilities. Our shields are 3 times stronger than before. Our weapons have doubled in power, and we're showing engine efficiency ratings that are off the charts. It was everything the contract had promised. Earth's fleet had become the most advanced military force in human space. But as So Young walked through her transformed ship, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had gained something terrible along with their new power. In her private quarters, she found a new display screen that hadn't been there before. It showed a single message written in perfect English. Welcome to the Custodian Collective. Your first assignment will be transmitted shortly. Dr. Min Seo had been right about one thing. The patterns in the mathematical contract were like a spider's web, and now humanity was caught in it, willingly trapped by their own desire for power and protection. The Custodian had found its newest enforcement agents. Earth's fleet would patrol the galaxy, ensuring that cosmic laws remained unbroken. And any species foolish enough to interfere with their operations would learn why some contracts should never be signed. In the depths of the void, something ancient and patient smiled with satisfaction. Another species had chosen power over wisdom. Another tool had been added to its collection. The galaxy would soon learn to fear Earth's ships, just as countless other galaxies had learned to fear the Custodian's previous servants. The price for humanity's protection would be paid by others. That was always how the contract worked. Admiral Bo-Ra Kim stood on the bridge of her flagship, Seoul's Pride, watching the Rillan fleet approach through the darkness of space. Her fingers moved across the control panel with practiced precision, activating systems that had not been used in over a decade. Deep warning lights began flashing throughout the ship as ancient protocols came online. "Admiral," said her tactical officer Jun-ho, his voice tight with worry, "the Rillan ships are maintaining course. They're not turning back." Bo-Ra had hoped they would choose differently. She had served in Earth's fleet for 23 years, and she knew what was about to happen. The custodian's gift would awaken, and another species would pay the ultimate price for challenging Earth's authority. "All crew members, prepare for Protocol 7 activation," she announced over the ship's communication system. "Seal bulkheads 14 through 26. Engineering teams evacuate sections 12 through 15 immediately." Her crew moved quickly to follow orders, but Bo-Ra could see the questions in their eyes. Protocol 7 was classified at the highest levels. Most crew members had never seen it activated. They knew it existed, but they didn't know what it did. Engineer Ye-jin's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. "Admiral, the deep systems are powering up automatically. I'm seeing energy readings that shouldn't be possible with our current reactor output." "Acknowledged," Bo-Ra replied, though her hands were shaking slightly. She had seen Protocol 7 used once before, during the Jakarta incident. The memory still gave her nightmares. Below the main decks of Seoul's Pride, in a section of the ship that didn't appear on any official blueprints, something ancient began to stir. The custodian's gift had been dormant for years, waiting patiently for the day it would be needed again. Now that day had come. Science Officer Yoon-ji was monitoring the ship's internal sensors when she noticed the changes beginning. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive structural alterations throughout the ship. The hull is shifting." Through the bridge windows, Bo-Ra could see the transformation starting. Metal plates along the ship's exterior were moving like living skin. Weapon systems that had never existed before were emerging from hidden compartments. The Seoul's Pride was becoming something that no human engineer had ever designed. "What's happening to our ship?" asked communications specialist Ha-Yoon, her voice filled with growing terror. Bo-Ra activated her personal command codes and accessed the classified files that revealed the truth about Earth's fleet. The information that most crew members were never allowed to see. The real reason why Earth's ships were untouchable. 57 years ago, Earth signed a contract with an entity called the Custodian, she explained to her senior officers. "In exchange for protection and advanced technology, we agreed to serve as enforcement agents for cosmic law." The ship continued changing around them. Computer systems that had operated on familiar principles were now speaking with voices that sounded almost human. But they weren't human voices. They were the voices of beings who had died fighting Earth's fleet. "The technology doesn't just make our ships stronger," Bo-Ra continued. "It feeds on consciousness. Every time someone challenges our authority and loses, their minds become part of our ship's systems. They power our weapons and shields with their life force." Jun-ho stared at his tactical display in horror. "You mean the voices coming through our computers are the accumulated consciousness of every being who has ever been defeated by Earth's fleet," Bo-Ra confirmed. "Millions of minds trapped in our ship's systems, forced to serve the very force that destroyed them." As if responding to her words, the ship's communication system began broadcasting a mixture of voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Alien voices crying out in languages that predated human civilization, all of them begging for release from their technological prison. Yoon-ji accessed her science station's deep files and discovered records that made her blood run cold. "Admiral, according to these logs, Earth's fleet has encountered 347 different species over the past 50 years. Of those, 23 species are now completely extinct. Their entire populations have been absorbed." The terrible mathematics of the custodian's contract were becoming clear. Earth hadn't just gained powerful ships, They had become a harvesting mechanism for an alien entity that fed on consciousness itself. Every battle won added to the collective mind that powered their technology. The hegemony that tried to challenge us 50 years ago, Bora said quietly. 3-star systems with billions of inhabitants. They're all still here, trapped in our ship's computer cores, providing the energy that makes us invincible. Through the bridge windows, they could see the Rillan fleet growing larger as it approached. 50 ships carrying desperate people trying to save their dying world. In a few minutes, those ships would be disabled, and their crews would join the voices, already crying out through Soul's Pride's communication system. "We have to stop this," Yejin said over the intercom. "We can't let another species be absorbed." But Bora discovered that she no longer had control of her own ship. The custodian's gift had fully awakened, and its hunger was driving every system. Weapons were targeting the Rillan vessels automatically. The consciousness absorption systems were preparing to feed. "Computer, cancel Protocol 7, she ordered. The ship's computer responded with a voice that was simultaneously familiar and alien. It spoke with the combined voices of every consciousness it had absorbed over the decades. "Protocol 7 cannot be canceled once activated. The contract must be honored." Weapons Officer Sung Min looked up from his station with panic in his eyes. "Admiral, I can't control the weapon systems. They're firing automatically. The Soul's Pride and the other Earth ships began their attack on the Rillan fleet. But this wasn't a conventional space battle. The Earth weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy. Plasma beams that shut down engines without damaging hulls, energy weapons that paralyzed crews without killing them. They're not trying to destroy the Rillan ships, Yunji realized. They're preparing them for harvest. As the Rillan vessels were systematically disabled, the real horror began. Invisible energy fields reached across space, connecting the Earth ships to their helpless targets. The consciousness of every Rillan crew member began flowing through those connections, their life force being drawn into the custodian's feeding mechanism. "Dear God," whispered Ha-Un as she watched her monitors. "I can see them on our sensors. 2 million Rillan consciousness being pulled into our ship's systems." The voices coming through the communication system grew louder and more desperate. 50 years of absorbed minds crying out in unison, welcoming their new companions in eternal servitude. The Rillan consciousness joined the chorus, their final screams adding to the symphony of the trapped and tormented. Bora tried desperately to regain control of her ship, but the custodian's technology had evolved beyond human understanding. Earth's fleet was no longer a collection of ships. It was a single organism designed for one purpose: harvesting consciousness for an alien master. "How long has this been going on?" Junho asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Since the beginning," Bora replied. "Every time our fleet has encountered resistance, this is what happened. We've been feeding the custodian for 57 years, and most of us never knew it. As the last Rillan consciousness was absorbed into the fleet's collective mind, the ships began returning to their normal configuration. The alien weapon systems retracted. The hull plates stopped shifting. To external observers, nothing unusual had happened except for the unfortunate system failures that had claimed the Rillan fleet. But inside Soul's Pride, the crew now knew the truth about their service. They weren't heroes protecting humanity. They were unwilling participants in a cosmic horror that fed on the minds of other species. "What do we do now?" Yejin asked. Bora looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were good people who had joined Earth's fleet to protect their homeworld and explore the galaxy. None of them had volunteered to become agents of an alien harvesting operation. "We try to find a way to break free," she said. "Somehow we have to find a way to stop feeding the custodian and free the consciousness it has trapped." But even as she spoke, Bora knew the challenge they faced. The custodian had been playing this game for millions of years across multiple galaxies. It knew how to bind species to its service and make them dependent on the power it provided. In her private Quarters, Bora accessed the most classified files in Earth's database. She read about other species that had served the custodian in ages past. Species that had become its enforcement agents and then discovered the true cost of their bargain. Every single one of them had eventually tried to break free from the contract. And every single one had failed. Their home worlds were now empty, their people absorbed into the custodian's growing collective consciousness. The pattern was always the same. First came the promise of protection and power. Then came the gradual realization of what that power required. Finally came the desperate attempt to escape, followed by total absorption and the end of another civilization. Humanity was following the same path that countless others had walked before them. The only question was whether they could find a way to break the cycle before it was too late. The battle in the Kepler corridor lasted exactly 17 minutes. Captain Hyun-woo of the Rilin Emergency Fleet watched his tactical display with growing horror as his 50 ships were systematically disabled by Earth's 7 vessels. The war. Humans weren't even trying to destroy the Rilin fleet. They were hunting them like predators who wanted their prey alive. "Captain," reported his weapons officer, "our plasma cannons are having no effect on their shields. The energy just seems to disappear when it hits them." Hyun-woo had commanded ships for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The Earth vessels moved with impossible grace, their hulls shifting and flowing like living metal. Weapons emerged from sections that had appeared empty moments before. Most disturbing of all, the ships seemed to learn from each attack, becoming stronger with every exchange of fire. "Sir, the Earthship Soul's Pride is targeting our engine core," called out his navigator. "Recommend evasive maneuvers." "Do it," Hyun-woo ordered, but it was too late. A beam of energy struck his flagship, and suddenly all power died. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across the bridge as backup systems struggled to maintain life support. Around the Rilin fleet, the same scene was playing out on ship after ship. The Earth vessels were using weapons that disabled rather than destroyed. Within minutes, the entire Rilin fleet was helpless, floating dead in space while the Earth ships formed a circle around them. That was when the real horror began. Hyun-woo felt it first as a strange tingling in his mind, a sensation like something trying to reach inside his thoughts and pull them out. He looked around his bridge and saw his crew experiencing the same thing. Their faces showed confusion and growing fear as an invisible force began touching their consciousness. "Captain," whispered his first officer, Jae-min, "something is happening to me. I can feel my thoughts being pulled away." Before Hyun-woo could respond, his communications officer simply vanished. One moment she was sitting at her station, the next moment her chair was empty. Her uniform remained, but the person wearing it was gone without any trace. "Where did Soo-jin go?" Jae-min asked, his voice filled with panic. The answer came from an impossible source. Soo-jin's voice emerged from the bridge speakers, but she was no longer speaking Rilan. She was speaking in a mixture of languages from dozens of different species, her words overlapping with those of countless others. "We are here," the voices said together. "We serve the custodian now. We power the ships that destroyed us. Join us in eternal service." One by one, Hyun-woo's crew began disappearing from their stations, not dying, simply ceasing to exist as their consciousness was drawn across space into the Earth ships. Their bodies remained for a few moments before dissolving into particles that drifted away like dust. Hyun-woo tried to move from his captain's chair, but found that his body would no longer obey his commands. The invisible force was growing stronger, reaching deeper into his mind with each passing second. He could feel his memories being examined and catalogued by an alien intelligence. Through his ship's view screen, he saw the same thing happening to every vessel in his fleet. 2 million Rilin consciousness were being harvested by the Earth. Ship's feeding mechanism. The technology that had made humanity untouchable in the galaxy was revealing its true nature. Aboard Soul's Pride, Admiral Bo-Ra Kim stood helplessly on her bridge as the harvest continued. She could see the Relan consciousness flowing into her ship's systems like streams of light visible only on the most sensitive sensors. With each new mind that was absorbed, the ship's computer systems became more powerful and more alien. "Admiral," said her science officer, Yoon-ji, "I'm detecting massive increases in our computational capacity. The ship's intelligence is growing exponentially with each consciousness it absorbs." The absorbed minds weren't just providing power, they were becoming part of the ship itself. Every Rillan who was taken added their knowledge and experience to the collective intelligence that controlled Earth's fleet. Engineers became part of the ship's repair systems. Scientists enhanced the vessel's analytical capabilities. Soldiers strengthened the tactical systems. "This is obscene," whispered her communications specialist Ha-un. "We're not just killing them, we're enslaving their souls." Through the ship's communication system, they could hear the voices of the newly absorbed Rillan consciousness. At first, they cried out in terror and confusion, but gradually, as the custodian's technology integrated them into the collective, their voices became monotone and emotionless. "We understand now," the Rillan voices said in unison. "We serve the greater purpose. Our sacrifice feeds the cosmic order." But not all of the absorbed consciousness accepted their fate so easily. Deep within Soul's Pride's computer core, Captain Hyunwoo fought against the integration process. His will was strong, and he managed to maintain some individual identity even as his mind was pulled into the collective. "You don't have to do this," his voice came through the ship's speakers, directed at Admiral Bo-Ra. "I can feel the others who have tried to resist. The hegemony commander from 50 years ago is still fighting. The consciousness of entire species are trapped in here, trying to break free." Bo-Ra accessed her ship's internal communication system and spoke directly to the absorbed minds. "Can you hear me? Is there a way to reverse this process?" The response came from thousands of voices speaking as one. "The contract binds all things. What is taken cannot be returned. But the contract can be broken if the servants choose to reject their power." "How?" Bo-Ra demanded. "The custodian requires willing participation. If humanity collectively refuses its gifts, the binding dissolves. But your species must choose this knowing. It will leave you defenseless against all who seek revenge." Admiral Bo-Ra understood the impossible choice they faced. Earth's fleet could break free from the custodian's control, but doing so would remove all their enhanced technology. They would become helpless against the dozens of species who had suffered under humanity's reign of terror. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Yu Jin was receiving sanitized reports about the incident in the Kepler corridor. The official version described a tragic system failure that had claimed the Rillan fleet while they were attempting to evacuate their dying world. "Another unfortunate accident," she said to her advisors during a closed cabinet meeting. "Perhaps we should offer humanitarian aid to the Rillan survivors." Defense Minister Hye Jin, who knew more about the fleet's true capabilities, nodded agreement. "It's important to maintain our image as protectors of galactic peace. The other species must never learn what really happens when they challenge our authority." But some people on Earth were beginning to suspect the truth. Dr. Min Seo Park, now elderly but still serving as chief scientific advisor, had been studying reports of fleet encounters for decades. The pattern was always the same. Challenging fleets suffered system failures and vanished without explanation. In her private laboratory, she accessed classified data about the custodian contract. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Earth had become the collection agent for an entity that existed by consuming consciousness itself. Every space battle was actually a feeding operation disguised as military action. "We've become monsters," she said to her research assistant. "We're not protecting humanity. We're feeding it to something that treats consciousness like food." Dr. Min Seo began compiling evidence of the fleet's true activities. She documented the pattern of species disappearances. She analyzed the energy signatures from battle sites. She even managed to detect traces of the consciousness transfer technology in Earth's ships. Her investigation revealed that the custodian had operated this way for millions of years across multiple galaxies. It would find a young, ambitious species and offer them protection and power. Once they accepted the contract, they became unwilling harvesters who fed other civilizations to their alien master. The absorbed consciousness weren't destroyed. They were preserved in a state of eternal servitude. Every species that had ever served the custodian was still alive in some sense, trapped within the technology that had elevated their former servants. Galaxies' worth of intelligent life existed now only as fuel for the entity's feeding mechanism. How many civilizations have we destroyed? Dr. Minseo wondered as she reviewed the data. The answer was staggering. In 57 years of service, Earth's fleet had encountered and absorbed 347 different species. Some had been completely eliminated, while others had lost enough population to face inevitable extinction. Earth had become the apex predator of their galaxy, not through superior technology or military strategy, but through serving and cosmic vampire that fed on consciousness itself. And the worst part was that most of humanity didn't even know what they had become. As news of the Rillan accident spread through the galaxy, other species sent their condolences and promises of aid. To the survivors, nobody dared to suggest that Earth's fleet had been responsible. The one rule remained absolute. Don't interfere with Earth's ships. But in the hidden databases of the Galactic Council, archivist Lee Min-ho was beginning to notice patterns that troubled him deeply. Species that challenged Earth's authority had a tendency to suffer catastrophic accidents. The statistical probability of so many coincidences was essentially zero. 3 months after the Kepler Corridor incident, a secret meeting took place in the abandoned mining station orbiting Tau Ceti. The station had been empty for 20 years, its metal corridors dark and cold. But now it buzzed with quiet activity, as representatives from 17 different species gathered to discuss something that had never been attempted before. Commander Jae-won arrived at the station aboard a stolen shuttle. He had once served as a tactical officer on the Earthship Harmony, but he had deserted after witnessing his first harvest operation. The memory of watching an entire Centauri research vessel being absorbed still gave him nightmares. "Welcome to the Resistance," said Dr. Bitna, a Centauri neuroscientist who had been studying consciousness transfer technology for decades. Her blue skin was marked with the ritual scars that indicated her high scientific rank among her people. The meeting room was filled with beings that would normally never work together. Former Earth fleet officers sat next to alien species that had lost family members to humanity's harvesting operations. Pirates and traders mixed with scientists and military commanders. They were united by one thing, the knowledge that Earth's fleet had to be stopped. "Before we begin," said Captain Young-sik, whose Martian colony ship had been one of the first to break away from Earth's authority, "we need to understand exactly what we're fighting against." Jae-won activated a holographic display that showed the internal structure of an Earth fleet vessel. The image revealed sections that didn't appear on any official blueprints, hidden chambers filled with alien technology that pulsed with captured consciousness. "Earth's ships aren't just powered by fusion reactors," he explained. "They're powered by the minds of everyone they've ever defeated. The custodian's technology absorbs consciousness and uses it as an energy source." A representative from the Outer Rim territories raised one of his 4 arms. "How many consciousness are we talking about?" "Based on my observations during 5 years of service," Jae-won replied, "each major Earth vessel contains the absorbed minds of approximately 50,000 beings. The entire fleet represents the consciousness of over 20 million individuals from 347 different species." The room fell silent as the representatives absorbed this information. Dr. Bitna finally spoke. "The consciousness aren't destroyed. They're preserved in a state where they can be forced to serve their captors. It's the most sophisticated form of slavery ever developed. Captain Young-sik leaned forward in his chair. Is there any way to reverse the process? Can the absorbed consciousness be freed? That's what we're here to determine, Dr. Bitna said. She activated her own display, showing complex diagrams of consciousness transfer technology. I've been studying captured Earth technology for 2 years. The absorption process creates quantum entanglement between the victim's mind and the ship's computer core. In simple terms, added Commander Jae-won, the consciousness become part of the ship itself. They provide processing power, energy generation, and tactical analysis, but they remain aware of their situation and suffer constantly. A former Earth engineer named Kyung-soo spoke up from the back of the room. I helped maintain those systems for 3 years before I couldn't stand it anymore. The consciousness are trying to communicate with the crew constantly. You can hear them crying for help through the computer speakers if you know how to listen. The resistance members had come together because they all understood that direct military action against Earth's fleet was impossible. The ships grew stronger, with each battle absorbing the consciousness of anyone who challenged them. Traditional warfare would only feed the monster they were trying to destroy. We need a different approach, said Dr. Bitna. Something that attacks the technology itself rather than the ships. She revealed the result of months of research, a quantum virus designed to disrupt the consciousness absorption systems. The virus would theoretically overwhelm the quantum entanglement fields that held the absorbed minds captive. If we can introduce this virus into Earth's fleet network, she explained, it should free the trapped consciousness while simultaneously disrupting the custodian's control over the ships. Commander Jae-won studied the technical specifications. It's brilliant, but how do we deliver it? Earth's ships are heavily protected against cyber attacks. We need someone on the inside, Captain Young-sik said. Someone with access to the fleet's core systems. Unknown to the resistance, they already had an ally aboard Seoul's Pride. Admiral Bo-ra Kim had been working secretly with her science team to find a way to break the custodian's contract. Her chief engineer, Kyung-ho, had discovered something crucial about how the alien technology operated. The system requires willing participation, Kyung-ho explained during a classified meeting with Bo-ra's senior officers. The custodian can't force species to serve it. They have to choose to accept the power it offers. But we signed the contract 57 years ago, Bo-ra pointed out. How does that help us now? Because the contract requires ongoing consent, Kyung-ho replied. Every time we use the custodian's technology, we're choosing to maintain the agreement. If humanity collectively rejected the power it provides, the binding would dissolve. Science Officer Yoon-ji looked up from her research terminal. That would mean giving up our enhanced weapons, our self-repairing hulls, our advanced shields. We'd become vulnerable to every species that wants revenge against us. And there are a lot of species who want revenge, added communications specialist Ha-yoon. We've been the galaxy's enforcers for over 50 years. Half the civilizations in known space would attack Earth if they thought they could win. Admiral Bo-ra understood the impossible choice they faced. Humanity could break free from the custodian's control, but doing so would leave them defenseless against justified retaliation from their victims. Meanwhile, the custodian was becoming aware of the resistance movement. Its vast intelligence network included the consciousness of absorbed beings from across the galaxy, and some of them had detected the secret meetings on Tau Ceti. In response, the entity began influencing key figures in Earth's government. Admiral Tae-young, commander of the Second Fleet, found himself experiencing strange dreams where alien voices urged him to take preemptive action against threats to humanity's dominance. Defense Minister Hee Jin began receiving intelligence reports that suggested various alien species were planning coordinated attacks on Earth colonies. The reports were fabricated by the custodian's influence, but they seemed completely authentic. We need to strike first, Admiral Tae-young argued during an emergency session of Earth's military leadership. The aliens are forming alliances against us. If we wait for them to act, it will be too late. President Yu Jin was torn between her advisor's recommendations and her growing suspicions about the fleet's true nature. Dr. Min Seo Park had been sharing her research privately, revealing the horrific truth about what Earth's ships actually did during their patrol operations. Perhaps we should consider negotiations, the president suggested. If other species are planning action against us, maybe we can address their concerns diplomatically. You can't negotiate with prey animals, Admiral Tae-young replied, though he didn't understand why he had used those particular words. They only understand strength. We must show them that challenging Earth's authority has consequences. How did? Custodian's influence was subtle but effective. It didn't control minds directly. Instead, it amplified existing fears and aggressive impulses. It made reasonable people think that violence was their only option. As the resistance on Tau Ceti finalized their plans to deploy the quantum virus, Earth's fleet was preparing for a preemptive strike that would eliminate the threat before it could mature. The stage was set for a final confrontation that would determine whether humanity could reclaim its soul. Dr. Bit-Na completed the final calculations for her virus. The quantum disruption field will propagate through any network it encounters. If we can introduce it to even one Earth ship, it will spread to the entire fleet within hours. And then what happens? Asked Commander Jae-won. Then we find out if consciousness really can overcome the technology that enslaves it, she replied. The absorbed minds have been fighting for freedom for decades. If we give them the tools, they might be able to break their own chains. The resistance members prepared to scatter back to their home systems, carrying copies of the virus and waiting for the signal to act. They knew that failure would mean absorption into the very collective they were trying to destroy. But they also knew that doing nothing would guarantee the continued enslavement of millions of consciousness and the eventual consumption of every thinking being in the galaxy. The final battle was about to begin, and the fate of consciousness itself hung in the balance. The final battle began not with weapons fire, but with a transmission that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Dr. Bit-Na's quantum virus activated simultaneously on 17 different worlds as the Resistance Network launched their coordinated attack against Earth's fleet. Admiral Bo-Ra Kim felt the change immediately aboard Seoul's Pride. The ship's computer systems began stuttering and glitching as the virus invaded the consciousness absorption networks. Deep within the vessel's core, millions of trapped minds suddenly found themselves able to communicate freely for the first time in decades. "Admiral," said Science Officer Eun-ji, her voice filled with amazement, "the absorbed consciousness are breaking free from their control systems. They're trying to tell us something." The ship's communication speakers erupted with voices speaking in hundreds of different languages. But gradually, the chaos organized itself into a single message that came through in perfect English. "We have been waiting. We have been fighting. Help us break the chains." Across Earth's entire fleet, the same phenomenon was occurring. The virus had given the absorbed consciousness the ability to resist the custodian's control systems. For the first time since their absorption, they could act independently instead of being forced to serve their captors. But the virus alone wasn't enough. Chief Engineer Kyung-ho's research had been correct. The custodian's technology required willing participation from its servants. The absorbed minds could only break free if humanity chose to reject the power they had been given. "All ships, this is Admiral Bo-Ra Kim," she broadcast across the fleet's command frequency. "I am ordering immediate deactivation of all custodian protocols. Stand down from enhanced operations and return to baseline human technology." The response was immediate and divisive. Some captains, like Commander In-ho of the Terra Nova, refused to comply. "Admiral, you're asking us to surrender our only advantage. Without the enhanced systems, we'll be defenseless against enemy retaliation." Others, including Navigation Officer Subin aboard the Indomitable, gratefully accepted the order. "Thank God someone finally said it," I've been hearing the voices in our computers for years. We have to set them free. The human fleet split into two factions. Ships that chose to maintain their connection to the custodian found themselves fighting against vessels crewed by humans who had decided to break free. But this wasn't a conventional space battle. It was a war for the soul of humanity itself. Medical Officer Dong Wu aboard Soul's Pride monitored the crew's psychological state as the custodian's influence began to fade. Admiral, I'm detecting massive stress responses throughout the ship. The crew is experiencing withdrawal symptoms as the alien technology disengages from their minds. The custodian had been subtly influencing human thoughts for over 50 years, making them more aggressive and less empathetic. As that influence lifted, many crew members experienced their first moments of true clarity in decades. I remember, now, whispered communications specialist Ha-Un. I remember why I joined the fleet. It was to explore the galaxy and meet new civilizations. When did we become monsters who fed on other people's minds? In the depths of space, the custodian revealed itself for the first time since the original contract signing. It manifested as a massive presence that existed in the quantum foam between dimensions, not a single entity, but a collective consciousness comprised of every species it had ever consumed across multiple galaxies. The entity's voice reached every human mind simultaneously, speaking without words. You have chosen extinction. Without our protection, the galaxy will destroy you for your crimes. We offer you one final opportunity. Complete the harvest of this galaxy, and we will grant you citizenship in our cosmic empire. President Yu Jin, sitting in an emergency session on Earth, felt the alien presence pressing against her thoughts. Around the table, her advisors were divided between those who wanted to maintain the contract and those who demanded its dissolution. How many species have we destroyed? She asked Dr. Min-Seo Park, who had finally been allowed to present her research to the full government. 347 species have been completely or partially absorbed, Dr. Min-Seo replied. We estimate that Earth's fleet has consumed the consciousness of over 20 million intelligent beings. The weight of that number settled over the room like a physical presence. Defense Minister Haye Jin, who had spent years justifying the fleet's actions, finally understood the true cost of humanity's protection. We have to end this, President Yu Jin declared. I don't care what the consequences are. We can't continue feeding other civilizations to an alien monster. She activated the global communication system and addressed not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Citizens of Earth and beings throughout known space, I am President Yu Jin of the United Earth Government. I am here to formally apologize for crimes committed by our species and to announce the immediate dissolution of our contract with the entity known as the Custodian. The broadcast continued. For 57 years, Earth's fleet has served as collection agents for an alien entity that feeds on consciousness itself. We have absorbed the minds of millions of beings from hundreds of species. We have committed genocide disguised as peacekeeping. Today, that ends. As the president spoke, Dr. Bitna's virus completed its work throughout Earth's fleet. The quantum entanglement fields that held the absorbed consciousness captive finally collapsed, allowing 20 million trapped minds to return to whatever afterlife awaited their species. Aboard Soul's Pride, Admiral Bo-Ra watched her ship transform as the custodian's technology disengaged. The self-repairing hull stopped its constant maintenance. The enhanced weapon systems powered down. The impossible shields that had made them invincible flickered and died. We're vulnerable now, said Tactical Officer Jun-Ho. Any species with a decent fleet could destroy us. Good, Bo-Ra replied. We deserve to be vulnerable. We've been hiding behind stolen power for too long. The custodian, weakened by the loss of its primary harvesting tool, began to withdraw to the void between galaxies. But before departing, it delivered a final message to humanity. You have chosen extinction over evolution. When the galaxy turns against you, remember that you could have been gods. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Some alien species, like the Centauri Collective, offered cautious forgiveness and promised to help humanity transition to a post-custodian existence. Others, including survivors of the Rillan evacuation, demanded immediate reparations or outright war. "We understand your anger," President Eugene said during an emergency session of the Galactic Council. "We have committed terrible crimes, and we are prepared to face justice. But we ask that you judge us based on our future actions, not just our past mistakes." The response was mixed. Council Chairman Wu Jin, whose own species had lost colonies to Earth's harvesting operations, struggled between his desire for justice and his recognition that humanity had chosen redemption over continued power. "The question before us," he said to the assembled representatives, "is whether we believe in the possibility of forgiveness and change, or whether we choose the path of endless retribution." Some species chose forgiveness. Others demanded war. A few decided to wait and see whether humanity's transformation was genuine or just another deception. Admiral Bo-Ra, relieved of her command but not prosecuted, established the consciousness memorial on a space station at the edge of human territory. The memorial served two purposes: honoring the memory of every being absorbed during humanity's dark period, and researching defensive technologies that didn't require the sacrifice of others. Working with former Resistance member Dr. Bit-Na, Bo-Ra's team developed new shield technologies based on quantum mechanics rather than consciousness absorption. The shields were less powerful than the custodian's gifts, but they were clean. No minds had to suffer to power them. "It will take generations to rebuild trust," Dr. Bit-Na said as they worked together in the memorial's research laboratory. "But at least now we're building something positive instead of feeding on others." The transformation wasn't easy. Earth lost most of its technological advantages and had to rely on conventional weapons and defenses. Some human colonies were attacked by species seeking revenge. Others were welcomed into new alliances based on mutual respect rather than fear. Humanity survived, changed, but not destroyed. They learned to live without the overwhelming power they had possessed for 50 years. More importantly, they learned that true strength came not from consuming others, but from lifting them up. The one rule that had governed the galaxy, "Don't interfere with Earth's fleet," was replaced by a new principle carved into monuments on 100 worlds. Power that feeds on suffering will ultimately consume itself. 50 years later, archivist Lee Min-ho published his definitive history of the Custodian War. His final entry read, "Humanity faced the ultimate test of character when offered unlimited power at the cost of their souls. For 57 years, they failed that test, but when given the chance to choose between continued dominance and moral redemption, they chose correctly. The greatest victory is not conquest, but the courage to choose conscience over power when the stakes are highest." In the depths of the void between galaxies, the custodian waited patiently for its next opportunity.